In the previous video, we had completed our backend code, and that now resides in this folder called as server. And at this base root directory level, we also want to create a new folder for our front end. So the folder will be called as front end. Instead of doing it ourselves, what we'll do is we will instead open up our terminal, and you can see I'm in the folder, the React Calorie Tracker folder. And here, if you ls, I've done ls here, there's only this folder called server, which has all the backend code for Golang. And now I want to create a front-end project here. So I'll say npx. So we're using CRA, standard stuff, create React app. And it's going to be called front end. So I'll create a new folder here, front end. Obviously, I want to install. And it'll take a while, so we'll come back. So now when you it's completed, so if you ls, you'll see a new folder called front end, and we'll ls and cto into it. So here you can see it's completed a complete React project for you. And here in your VS Code, you can see the new folder called front end as well, where you have all these files. And now is the time that we'll start actually writing the front end code. What you want to do now is you want to install Bootstrap, and you then want to install React Bootstrap. And once we've done that, hopefully we should see that, in our package.log.json file, should see Bootstrap and React Bootstrap. Make sure these two are there before you start. Now you want to open up your code editor, and inside the front end folder, we have an src folder. And this is where we will create a new folder called as components. And the components folder, we'll have two components. So there's a file for entries.components.js. And there will be another file called single entry.component.js. And in your app.js file, what you want to do is you want to get rid of everything and just have a div here. And out here also, you don't need app.css. You don't need the logo. What you need is you want to import React from React. And then you also want to import Bootstrap. So we'll say Bootstrap /css/bootstrap.css. And in my entries component file, I will create a component called entries. And that's the one I want here. So I'll say from /components/entries.components. And here I'm just going to render my entries. That's it. So this is it. This is our app.js file. Now I'm using plugins for my Go code. I'm not using any special plugins for React. This is a new setup. So let me go ahead and check if there are any plugins that I should be using, so that it makes it easier for me to write these kind of tags in HTML and for React. So let me go ahead and find it, and then in just 2 minutes I'll be back. So I have gone ahead and installed this ES7 plus React Redux and React Native snippets. So they have all the extensions for ES7 and React. So I think this is good. And then I already have Prettier and ESLint. So so hopefully this should show us if there's any problems, or should help us write code much easily. So you can go ahead and do that as well. So now I'll start getting these quick lines, because obviously there's no we don't have these components yet. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and go to our components, entries.component file, and here we will say import React comma, I need use state and use effect. We'll be using functional components, that's why we need these from React. And I'll also need Axios from Axios. And I don't think we have imported it yet, so we'll have to import Axios. Let me go check it out. Do I already have Axios somewhere? No, I don't have Axios, so we'll have to import install Axios as well. And then we have I need the button form container, just the usual stuff. So like I said, we won't be doing anything fancy in front end. It's going to be very standard stuff from Bootstrap, React Bootstrap. And then we need the single entry. So we'll have a component called entry out here in this file, single entry component. So we'll be needing that. So we'll say entry from single entry component. So that's it. We just have these two files. And for this file to work properly, the multiple entries, we need the single entry component that we've created here. So logically, the best way forward is to create the single component first. So here also, actually, we can simply copy this line from here, paste it here, and here I'll be needing Bootstrap as well. So I'll say Bootstrap, which I have in app.js file. So I'll actually copy and paste from there. And then I need a couple of things like button, card, row, and column from React Bootstrap. Then we'll create a constant for entry, which will have a few things. It will have the data for the entry, so we'll call it entry data. We'll have set change ingredient. So the struct that we had created in the backend for Golang, all the data for that entry is going to come to us here. And the operations you had seen in the front-end demo, we were able to change the ingredient. We were able to delete an entry. So each row, which will have the data for the ingredient, or the calories, or the fat, that whole thing is called as an entry. And that's how we've created it in our backend also. And we can change the entire entry as well. Now we'll start rendering it. So for that we need a card and row, bootstrap row, and then we'll have each column. So we'll go column by column. The first column that I have is dish. So in the dish column, the data that I want is the, and first we'll check if the entry data is not undefined. And the data that I want to print out here is going to be the entry data dot dish. Now I'll just copy and paste this. And in the second column, we have ingredients. And the third column, we have calories. And the fourth column, we'll have fat. And here, all we have to change is these things. So here it'll be ingredients, here it'll be calories, and here will be fat. Apart from that, there are three more columns which help you, which you can take operations. You can do operations on each row. So those three columns. Sorry, I should have. So these three columns are buttons. They're going to be buttons. And the button will have an on-click property And the first button is for deleting the entry. The second button is going to be for changing the ingredients. The third is going to be changing the entry. And now this ties up perfectly well with our changing ingredient, deleting entry, and set changing entry. These are three actions we can take here. So we're going to say delete single entry, and here we're going to say set change ingredient. So I'm going to copy and paste so that it's consistent. So you have delete single entry, set change ingredient, and set change entry. Now the data that we want to pass here is entry data.id. So we want to pass the ID of that particular entry, which we'll always have in our entry data already. And here I want to pass nothing because we can change the ingredient of that particular row. And here also I'm passing nothing. So this is our entry. So the way you say an entry, that's the whole component. It's going to have a card, it's going to have multiple rows, and each row you can define what are the columns, and you can define the data that's getting printed in each of those columns. Now these two functions, change ingredient and change entry, we'll have to now define here. So this is actually going to be change ingredient and change entry, and we'll be defining these two functions in this component itself. So we'll say function change ingredient set change ingredient. So we'll have change equal to true, comma ID entry data dot ID, and later on you want to say function change ingredient. So make sure these C are small, both of these C are small, and so change change entry, because you already have change ingredient, and change entry you'll set the change entry change equal to true, comma you'll pass the ID, which will be in entry data.id. Okay, so now we have these two functions being called here, and we're setting the change entry and set change ingredient, and the actual functions which help us, which will call the APIs, will be in this file, the entries components .js file. That's where we'll have the actual functions for calling the APIs, on the local host. So this is it for today's video. In tomorrow's video, we will start working with our entries components.js file. Thanks a lot for watching, and I hope you have already subscribed. If you haven't, do consider subscribing. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.